This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, everyone. You know, I like to run a tight ship here, so we're starting right at 7:30 Eastern time anyway. I know that we're all across the country right now in different time zones, and it's wonderful to look up and see everyone's name and to see how many folks are here and folks that I haven't seen for a while, so welcome. For those of you I haven't met, I'm Kathleen Driskell. I'm chair of the School of Creative and Professional Writing, and this is pre-residency reading. We thought we'd do a little celebratory kickoff and of our faculty meetings, and generally during residence we have 5, 6 faculty, generally 5 minutes every 6 90, 10 minutes.
Kathleen, you're really cutting out.
Starting
to cut out, Kathleen.
Yeah, in terms of they go across the gate in terms of present. So exciting. All right, you hear me?
You're really cutting out.
Okay. Okay. All right. So Karen, I'm gonna need you to take over. And can I get everybody to turn off their cameras except for me and mute yourselves? And that might help us a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, you were sounded better at the end there. Maybe that's it. I think Kathleen's going to come back in here and try it. No, we're still not hearing you, Kathleen.
Karen, is this better for you?
That was, yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, luckily for you all, I'm only going to say a word or two in between. You all, I'm at my home. When we have residency, I'll be in my office and I'll have much better connectivity. But since it's well into the evening, I'm at home. So welcome everyone. We will get these readings started for our celebratory pre-reading of faculty who are going to participate in the fall 2020 residency. I'm Kathleen Driskell. If I haven't met you yet, I look forward to meeting you soon. Spend some time with you during residency. Our readers tonight are Rachel Harper, Fenton Johnson, Leslea Newman, Manuel, Larry Brenner, and Lynnell Edwards. And of course, they're all fantastic colleagues of ours, and we feel so happy to be and honored to be on the faculty with all of them and to hear from their amazing work. So I do want to tell you all before we get started that their books are for sale if you'd like to purchase any of them on bookshop.org on our page, our particular page for Spalding. And when you do that, some of the proceeds goes back to our independent local bookstores, but it also, we get a small cut of it for the scholarships for our Spalding students as well. So I look forward to being with everyone. The residency will kick off in a sort of a mild way on Friday with some meetings. And then Saturday we'll all come together for the town hall in the morning. And that's when we will launch for all intents and purposes. And if you all, I hope you all have gotten your residency schedule and that you've been busy highlighting things and looking at what you want to attend and looking forward to that. We have lots of riches for you during the residency, and we're very excited about what we're going to bring to you. And I want to thank the team, the MFA team in the office, for working so hard. They have really put in lots and lots of hours to bring you something special. So I'm thankful for them, as I know you are. So just one more thing before I start introducing folks. I will hang out after the last reading, and we'll be here to answer any questions you might have about residency. Maybe there won't be any questions, but I want to be available to you if you do have questions. And then you all on GoToMeeting can control your and control just off. Can't know you anybody you want to stay until except for the readers, and then at the very end we'll come back together and be happy. Our first reader tonight is Rachel Harper, and Rachel is a member of our fiction faculty, and her most recent, although she has other projects coming out fairly soon. Good news there is the novel This Side of Providence. So I'm going to
Kathleen, Rachel's not here. I just got a text from her that she's having trouble. So why don't I call her?
Let's go to the next person then. Okay, so Fenton, are you ready to go on? Fenton Johnson is a member of our creative nonfiction faculty and also our fiction faculty. And his most recent publications are A Center of All Beauty, Solitude in the Creative Life, and also The Man Who Loved Birds. So Fenton, come on camera and please share your work with us.
All right. Let me do one more thing here that I'm trying to figure out. Now, I'm still sorry, not being ready. There we go, but that's it. No, but whatever. I'm assuming you can, Karen, you can hear me?
Yes, Fenton, you're coming in good. Thank you.
Okay, great, then I'll start. Okay, I'm Fenton Johnson. I'm gonna talk a bit about and read from my most recent book of creative nonfiction. I'd like to start first of all by, I'm out in Arizona, thanking the people of Louisville for keeping the memory of Breonna Taylor alive in the face of so much force against memory in our current moment in history, and also thanking the Spalding staff, because as we all know, it's really harder to pull this off in a certain way online than it is in person, and they have worked tirelessly to make that happen. So my most recent book is called At the Center of All Beauty, Solitude in the Creative Life, in which I, through the lens of looking at the works of various artists, writers, musicians, and also ordinary human beings like my parents and other people I've encountered, look at the place of solitude in our society, and specifically of solitaries, that is, those people who live alone. The book has a epigraph at the beginning, a poem by the gay poet Frank O'Hara, who died on the beach under mysterious circumstances at Fire Island at 40 years old, 1964. I like to memorize poetry. It's a practice I recommend to you. Driving long, boring drive, tape it to the mirror in your bathroom, and you get a poem to carry with you. And the epigraph is only a small section of the poem, but here's the poem in its entirety. It's called Autobiographia Literaria, or Literary Autobiography, by Frank O'Hara. When I was a child, I played by myself, all alone in a corner of the schoolyard. I hated dolls, and I hated games. Animals were not friendly. Birds flew away. If anybody came looking for me, I hid behind a tree and cried out, "I am an orphan." And here I am, the center of all beauty, writing these poems. Imagine. And I love that little poem. I chose it as the epigraph of the book for a number of reasons, but one of them is the last word, imagine, with an exclamation point. He's saying, of course, imagine the magnitude of the journey that brought me to this point, but he's also issuing a command to us to imagine for ourselves what kind of journey we would make in our lives, what sort of world we want to live in, and what's necessary to make that happen. So I'm going to read a couple of passages from At the Center of All Beauty. The title comes from that Frank O'Hara poem. This is close to the beginning and pretty much sets forth what the book the thesis of the book. We are in the midst of a demographic revolution whose long-term implications may be as significant as the 20th century's mass migration from the countryside to the city. I speak of the astonishing numbers of people worldwide who are choosing to live alone or who deliberately carve out periods of solitude from otherwise conventionally coupled lives. The evidence is accumulating that when people, especially women, are presented with the opportunity and the means to live alone, many will sacrifice to achieve it, to seize it. That the number of solitaries is growing worldwide, and that's true even in countries like China and Brazil, is without question. But we have made little acknowledgement and accommodation of that fact. Our housing, healthcare, and urban planning, everything from restaurant design to discount gym memberships to the gargantuan loaves of bread our bakeries turn out, is still based on the ideal of the coupled household, preferably with 2 children. Of greatest consequence, the stories we tell ourselves embody fantasies of idealized couples and families, even if in unconventional configurations. Instead of the rich and rewarding solitary journeys, more and more of us are living out. Some see in this development a sign of social breakdown. I look at this demographic transformation and see not the crumbling of the cornerstone of society, but the potential for more diverse and loving relationships to one another and the planet. With 7.5 billion plus people on this earth, surely solitaries, especially those who are childless or who adopt, offer alternative stories worth our attention and support. In my case, early in my 20s, I realized that, with many nieces and nephews already born and more likely to arrive, the planet had no shortage of my particular genetic material. In a world groaning under the weight of too many people, I would undertake the second most selfless act I could imagine. I would remain childless. I would do my best to serve others as a teacher and a writer. Perhaps some deep wisdom is manifesting itself in these millions of people seeking or at least experiencing solitude. Perhaps solitaries are evidence of an aspect of the human character only now permitted to blossom. If one subscribes to the Western conception of progress, that it is possible to study our past, learn from it, and apply those lessons to build a better future, maybe studying the works and lives of our solitaries is key to reconceiving our understanding of the human family. And what follows is my sort of trademark mix of research and memoir and essayistic investigations. I'll read one more passage because I'm teaching this in this intensive, not in the intensive, but in the Spalding Con, a workshop called Reading and Writing a Spiritual Practice. And this passage is both relevant to Louisville. It opens with a famous passage from the monk and mystic Thomas Merton, who worked at the Abbey of Gethsemane, just to the south of Louisville, says something about, gives a sense of, I think, what I want to achieve in the book. This is on a plaque, which some of you may have read, at the corner of 4th and Walnut. It's a quotation from Thomas Merton. At the corner of 4th and Walnut, in the center of the shopping district, I was suddenly overwhelmed with the realization that I loved all those people, that they were mine and I was theirs, that we could not be alien to one another, even though we were total strangers. It was like waking from a dream of separateness, of spurious self-isolation in a special world, the world of renunciation and supposed holiness. If only everybody could realize this, but it cannot be explained. There's no way of telling people that they are all walking around shining like the sun. So that's the end of the Merton quotation. You'll find it on a plaque at 4th and Walnut. Writing on this quiet, hot summer morning in Tucson, I understand Eudora Welty's perception of being one with her garden and Thomas Merton's perception of being one with all those people walking around shining like the sun as being rooted in some essential, visceral way in their embrace of solitude. At the most literal level, if either Welty in her garden or Merton on a busy city corner had been with a companion, he or she would have been conversing with or listening to or being distracted by that companion, and so would not have had the experiences they report. But what I'm writing about arises from some deeper place, a place built slowly, imperceptibly, unconsciously, from hours and days and weeks and years of silence and solitude, whether alone with oneself or alone in a crowd. And what is the foundation of that place? With Thomas Merton and Eudora Welty, I think it is love, self-love, the heresy of self-love. Why heresy? What was the critic in solitary Paul Zweig invoking in the title of his book-length meditation, The Heresy of Self-Love? Most obviously, the solitary is characterized as selfish, unwilling to take on the responsibilities, marriage, children, of a selfless life. This canard persists, even though in my experience, it is solitaries who educate children or care for them in emergency rooms, or care for and visit the elderly in facilities where they are seldom visited by their biological children or relatives. John Keats taught us that genius lies in the capacity to hold in the heart two apparently contradictory ideas without striving after the resolution. To love the self, lose the self. No self, the Zen teacher Suzuki Roshi would cry. He did not mean that we have no identities or responsibilities. Rather, he meant that wisdom locates the self in a continual process of giving it away, a truth Jesus also expressed. This is an act of great courage, entailing openness and vulnerability and forgiveness and ever and always paying attention. These qualities, summed up in the now familiar Buddhist term mindfulness, are in scarce supply at any time, but especially in our wired, fast-paced age in which cheapness and convenience have replaced care and attention as our top priorities. To care enough to risk paying attention, to pull out the earplugs and take off the sunglasses and listen and look, how challenging is that? Knowing I will never reach that place, all the same I can admire it, aspire to it, the forested mountain on the horizon, beckoning me onward, where at the summit I will perceive all of us, every one, walking around shining like the sun. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Fenton. That was beautiful, very beautiful. So we have Rachel with us now. So Rachel, do you want to come on camera?
Yes. Can you see me? Let's see. Do I have to? Can you hear me? Share my
I can
web.
hear you.
Okay.
There you are. There you are. Oh, it's so
Can
good
you
to
see
see you.
me?
Look at all those beautiful books behind you. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So
I
let me just say that
read.
this is Rachel Harper, and she is going to read from us this evening. She's on the fiction faculty, as I mentioned before. We're so happy to have her with us. She's a really talented fiction writer and a wonderful teacher as well. And her last novel was This Side of Providence, although she has lots of goodies coming out very soon. So Rachel, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Kathleen. Hello, everyone. Glad everyone's here. I apologize for my tardiness. Karen Mann, my apologies to you. You did everything to get me on time and together, and I still messed it up. Okay. I'm actually going to read from a new essay that I just wrote for an anthology coming out. I have not written many essays in my life, so be kind. But yes, I'm normally mostly a fiction writer. Okay, this essay is called Inheritance. For the first half of my life, I lived with the knowledge of a single inheritance. When my parents died, I would inherit our lake house, a small, musty cabin under a canopy of oak trees beside a mud-colored lake in central Minnesota. Nothing about it was glamorous, aside from the idea of ownership. For my child self, that was enough. It was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house with an unfinished attic and a shower that never worked. Beneath its small, square shape was a basement that was perpetually damp. No matter how often we aired it out, it held a permanent stench of wet rags and spilled oil. I was convinced that several ghosts lived down there, characters who'd escaped from books I'd been forced to read on rainy days. Mrs. Havisham, Boo Radley, Mr. Rochester's wife. And yet I loved this house, as if I had dreamt it into being. It had the best well water I'd ever tasted, which came out as cold as a mountain stream, and with such force it was like turning on a hose, the flood of water as solid and thick as a pipe, shimmering like mercury. And one day, when we were grown up and responsible, it would belong to me and my 2 older brothers. We would own it together, the 3 of us, and like our shared DNA, it would bind us together. It would make us one. Throughout my childhood, we spent our summers there, but to call it a summer house was to inflate it in both size and stature. Yes, it was a house, and we lived in it for several weeks in the summer, but it was not grand or fancy or desirable. Words I associated with people who summered on the Cape or the Vineyard, people who used the word summer as a verb. Each June, we packed the car and drove 1,500 miles in 4 days, the 5 of us squished into an overburdened Volvo station wagon, a car with spotty air conditioning and wide stripes of rust over the wheel beds, the radio dial permanently stuck on NPR. We crossed the country from east to Midwest, staying in motels along the way or on the pull-out couches of my father's faculty friends, newly tenured professors who taught in small towns like Ann Arbor and Hamilton, or large, sweltering cities like Chicago. They welcomed us with trays of hamburgers and pitchers of ice-cold lemonade when we arrived, mosquito-bitten and sweat-stained after hours in the car. Despite the external trappings of a middle-class life, we were not privileged. We had to suffer before our vacation, sacrifice amenities like comfort, privacy, and legroom, in addition to regular rest stops. Surely that didn't amount to anyone's idea of splendor. We needed it to be understood. We were not spoiled like many of our private school classmates who flew on planes or went to expensive overnight camps, who owned houses by the beach and had paid staff making their meals. Our cabin was in Minnesota, 100 miles from a real city, and our beloved little lake was far from impressive in a state known for thousands of them. We lived several miles from the nearest town, and our closest neighbors were family. My grandparents lived next door, on the other side of a hedge of chokecherries. One aunt and her husband lived in an old farmhouse by the main road, while another one owned a strip of land behind us, driving a camper down on weekends to escape the cities. By the time I was 10, we had turned a dozen acres of flat, unremarkable land in Kandiyohi County into our family's version of the Kennedy compound. But there was no television in our cabin, no toaster, and no central air conditioning. We ate from our aunt and uncle's gardens, picked blackberries by the side of gravel roads, fried sunfish we pulled from the lake on handmade fishing poles like Huck Finn. Every night after dinner, my mother burned our trash in a small dirt fire pit behind the compost pile outside the kitchen window. My father drove the 3 miles to town to pick up our mail each day. We didn't have a telephone. In our minds, we were roughing it. We washed our hair once a week in the lake. We reread the same books left behind from the summer before. The Old Man and the Sea, A Prayer for Owen Meany, The Bluest Eye. We lived in our bathing suits. We misplaced our shoes for weeks at a time, only needing them for trips to the $2 movie theater on Wednesday nights or the annual all-you-can-eat farewell dinner we had every August, hosted by the bar that sponsored my cousin's Little League team from a few towns over. We were an odd, unconventional bunch, and for most of my childhood, I thought that this, as much as the cabin itself, was my inheritance. None of my aunts worked outside of their homes, and my uncles worked for themselves or other men they knew, renovating barns, restoring tractors, growing marijuana on foreclosed farms on the edge of the county line. My father, the only one with a real job, meaning a retirement account, sat at the typewriter all day, writing postcards and poems at a desk he made by placing an old door on top of 4 wooden crates, one still holding an errant glass bottle long empty of milk. He wore shorts, sunglasses, and sandals. It was the only time all year I ever saw his bare feet. How powerful his legs looked under that desk, muscles twitching like a thoroughbred at the gate. He had the whole day to himself. No students, no classes, no committee meetings. No one in our extended family had a boss, had somewhere to be at 9 a.m. And I thought that was an achievement beyond measure, to have the power to dictate your days. This was another thing I inherited, a desire for not just autonomy, but to be untethered. I wasn't raised to believe in God or heaven or Santa Claus, but I was taught to believe in the permanence of objects, to worship land that our ancestors had tamed, to value homes their hands had built. I understood at a very young age that if something terrible happened to us, like poverty or illness, or even something less dire, like the need to take a break from the grind of regular life, our cabin would always be there. No one could close the door on us. We would always have a place to take us in. In short, we were free. When my parents divorced, a year after I graduated from college, my mother called to tell me the news. Her voice was strained and she sounded nervous, upset. At first, I thought it was because of the separation, the work of moving out of our family home in Providence where we had lived together in relative harmony for almost 20 years. But no, that wasn't it. The real reason didn't become clear until the end of the phone call. They were selling the cabin. My mother needed money to live on before the divorce settlement came through. My father had agreed to split the proceeds. We had lost our inheritance. My brothers, one still in college after 8 years, no degree in sight, the other working full-time as a librarian and part-time cutting hair, weren't that upset. They hadn't been to the cabin in several years, and when they did come, the visits were short and devoid of the intimacy we had once shared. The lake water was too warm, they complained, no longer refreshing, and the neighbors had built bigger houses along the opposite shore, ruining our once idyllic view. Our childhood was over, they said. It's time to move on. I didn't see it that way. I was, in a word, devastated. I felt betrayed, as if my parents had taken out all our family photo albums, covered them with kerosene and lit a match, dropping it onto the pile to let our memories burn to ash. The cabin wasn't perfect, but it was the only home we had owned for my entire life. My parents had purchased it from my grandparents the summer after I was born. It was the one home I didn't have memories of moving into or out of. It had simply existed, as permanent and steady as the oak trees in our front yard, the only ones not felled by the tornadoes that rip through the Midwest every decade or so. I couldn't imagine not having the cabin, not going there each summer as a way to mark time. It was as if I had come to see my life as the time that existed between visits. Each year I needed to go there to see who I was, or rather, who I had become. Without it, who would I be? It took me more than 10 years to go back. Right after they sold the cabin to my mother's cousin for a ridiculously small sum of money, at the time the cost of 2 years at a private college, I vowed I would never return. I didn't want to see anyone else enjoying the views of the lake from our living room windows. I couldn't bear to hear the slap of the screen doors banging against their crooked frames as visitors stopped in on another family. I didn't want to see our home filled with someone else's furniture, to smell their dinner in our kitchen, to hear the sounds of other voices filling the room. And God forbid they make any improvements. I knew I couldn't live through that. So I stayed away, despite the invitations to weddings and funerals, despite the hole it opened in my summers, empty weeks I tried to fill with extra work, love affairs, and travel to more interesting exotic locations, places that, unlike our lake house, were visible on maps. My daughter was a year old when I finally went back. We stayed in my aunt's house at the top of the hill, and for 2 days I managed to avoid walking down to the lake to see our old cabin. On the third day, I knew I had to face it. I looked down at her bare... My daughter was newly walking, and I held her hand as we set off, neither one of us wearing shoes. I looked down at her bare feet as we walked, amazed that she seemed to handle the gravel path much better than I could, the soles of my feet soft now, unaccustomed to the sharp contours of stone. My heart was beating in my chest as we walked down the path and resuming our walk. My daughter's small plastic bucket was half filled with raspberries, which she dragged along the ground beside us. "Look," she said, pointing at the crabapple tree beside a patch of worn grass where we used to park our car. I forced myself to lift my head, staring at the canopy of oaks that were always tall, but now seemed to cover the cabin completely, as if in a show of solidarity. They hid the cabin from me, and as I walked closer, knowing it was about to reveal itself to me, I relished the last seconds of ignorance, imagining the small square structure as it used to be, the faded green paint trimmed in burgundy and white, the front door propped open with a 5-gallon bucket of sweet corn my uncle had just picked. I still couldn't see the house, but everything surrounding it was the same, and I could almost convince myself that nothing had changed, that it all still belonged to me. And then I saw the cabin, or rather, the house that now stood in its place. Our cabin was gone, and a new structure, long and bright, with shining glass windows and a white shingled roof, stood in its place. It was twice the size our cabin had been, and though it wasn't ugly, I hated it instantly. As we walked by, I tried not to look at it. I told myself to keep walking, to focus on the lake coming into view in front of me, and we soon arrived at the old beach, where I picked up my daughter and waded in the shallow water, afraid to look back. I didn't realize it then, but I was lucky that our cabin was gone. The structure we called our home, the one we had lived and loved in, no longer existed. It had been erased, and by doing so, had become permanently fixed in our memories. Like a time capsule, it was forever locked in an earlier time, the days and weeks of my endless childhood, when I was young and full of hope, and we were a family, living under the same small roof, safe in the knowledge that we had a home, a place to gather in the storm that would always take us in. My parents did leave me an inheritance, a landscape of memories that cannot be destroyed. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Rachel. That was so beautiful. I loved hearing about your father's desk. I thought that was great, especially knowing his work. Yeah, and I actually gasped out loud when I heard it was being sold. So it was very beautiful. So thank you so much. Okay, so next we're going to hear from Leslea Newman, the wonderful Leslea Newman, who is on our Writing for Children faculty and is so well known to everyone for her writing, especially her writing about civil rights and all. So Leslea, you want to come on now, and Rachel will take you off, okay?
Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm assuming, unless I'm told otherwise, that you can see me and hear me.
We can.
Excellent. Great to be here, and deep, heartfelt gratitude to everyone who worked so hard to make this happen. And I also just wanted to hold up a little show and tell, because as Fenton was quoting Frank O'Hara, I wanted to show my beloved collected Frank O'Hara book. I've had for many years, and especially because there's this beautiful photo of him on the back cover. It was such a tragedy that he died so young. Okay, so what I'm going to do this evening is read from a work in progress that combines three of my favorite things: children's literature, formal poetry, and cats. And this goes very well with my lead lecture, The ABCs of Poetry, Writing for Children and Young Adults in Verse. And for the poets among us, you might hear, or everyone will hear, but you might recognize some imitations of Christopher Marlowe, Emily Dickinson, Sir Philip Sidney, Robert Frost, and Christina Rossetti. So I will start with The Passionate Poet to Her Cat. Come live with me and be my cat, and your soft belly I will pat. From head to tail I'll stroke your fur while listening to your rumbling purr. And when I sit upon the couch beside me, you will sweetly crouch, while outside snow falls to the ground and cat-like lands without a sound. And I'll spread toys throughout the house, a ball of yarn, a catnip mouse, a feather dangling from a stick for you to bat your favorite trick. And when it's time to fill your dish, your happiness my only wish, I'll open 40 cans of food until I find what fits your mood. And when you're full and had your fun, you'll curl up in a spot of sun and deeply sleep without a care on what was once my favorite chair. And when you stretch to your full size and gaze at me and blink your eyes and wash your whiskers, face and paws, I'll greet feet with wild applause. And all the sofas you will shred and take up nearly half the bed and sometimes throw up on the rug. To all of this, I'll simply shrug. And since you hate the vacuum's roar, I will not use it anymore. I'll find another way to clean that won't upset my feline queen. I'll never call you fluffy toes or boo-boo kitty button nose. I'll choose a name of dignity that suits you, like Your Majesty. I'll worship you as you deserve, if only you will let me serve. On bended knee, I'll end this chat. Come live with me and be my cat. A little cat came down the walk. A little cat came down the walk she did not know I saw. With sleek black fur and big gold eyes, she was without a flaw. I felt a stirring in my heart and hoped that she would stay, and so I asked her to come in to pass the time of day. I offered her a bowl of cream and 7 kinds of fish. At first she nibbled daintily, then gobbled up her dish. And then my guest explored the house. She strolled from room to room until she found a spot of sun, the perfect place to groom. When she was clean from head to tail, she headed for the door. She mewed at me to open it. My heart sank to the floor. I did as told as she stepped out to sniff the summer air. Farewell, I called and waved to her as if I didn't care. She put her paw upon the walk. I turned to go back in, but then I thought I felt something brush up against my shin. I looked around, she wasn't there. I stood and scratched my head, and then I heard a soft meow and found her on my bed. And this I just wrote this afternoon. My kitten has my heart and I have hers. My kitten has my heart and I have hers. We traded on the day she wandered in to serenade me with her rumbling purrs as I caressed her belly, back, and chin. Her heart in me so brave and strong and sweet. My heart in her so grateful and so true. My darling kitten makes my life complete. Without her, I don't know what I would do. Her grace, her beauty, and her feline ways fill my heart and soul with such delight as we curl up and sleep away our days and then unfurl to prowl away the night, knowing that whatever else occurs, my kitten has my heart and I have hers. Stopping by home on a snowy evening. Whose cat this is, I think I know. She looks at me and blinks so slow. My kitten, can it really be? She disappeared a week ago. For 7 days, I'd hoped to see my little cat up in a tree or hiding underneath the stair. I prayed that she'd return to me. And now at last she's standing there. She cannot tell me why or where. She went away, but with one leap, she's back upon her favorite chair. And in an instant she's asleep, all curled into a furry heap, and I'm so happy I could weep, and I'm so happy I could weep. Little cat, title is Little Cat. Little cat, where did you go? You were gone the whole night, and I missed you so. Where were you during the thunder and lightning? Oh dear little cat, how it must have been frightening. Did you find a safe place that was toasty and warm, a cozy snug shelter to weather the storm? Or were you alone on the dark lonely street with no one to pet you and nothing to eat? And how did you find your way back to our nest to curl on the lap of the one you love best? Oh, little cat, where did you go? I wish you could tell me, but I'll never know. The Alpha Cat Song. Adorable cat with eyes of gold, baby cat just 2 days old, curious cat loves to explore, dozing cat with thunderous snore, elegant cat with delicate toes, finicky cat turns up her nose, grumpy cat with twitchy tail, hefty cat who tips the scale, inquisitive cat with six-toed paws, joyful cat with sharpened claws, kissable cat so soft and sweet, lazy cat with outstretched feet, muddy cat who leaves wet tracks, naughty cat who steals my snacks, obedient cat stays on his chair, primping cat grooms every hair, quiet cat out on the prowl, rowdy cat with piercing yowl, scaredy cat so full of fright, ticklish cat who purrs all night, unusual cat swims in the tub, voracious cat who gobbles grub, worried cat mews anxiously, exuberant cat meows with glee, yawning cat curled in a ball, zany cat climbs up a wall. Now I know my ABCs, next time won't you purr with me? That actually is going to be a board book, as is the Counting Cat Song. Cat number 1 has nothing to do until she makes friends with cat number 2. Cat number 2 is sweet as can be, but not quite as sweet as cat number 3. Cat number 3 purrs loud as a roar when he takes a nap with cat number 4. Cat number 4 learns how to survive by keeping an eye on cat number 5. Cat number 5 is mastering tricks that he then tries out on cat number 6. Cat number 6 feels like she's in heaven when she's snuggled up with cat number 7. Cat number 7 leaves food on his plate that's soon eaten up by cat number 8. Cat number 8 decides that it's fine to share all her toys with cat number 9. Cat number 9 hears something and then she opens the door for cat number 10. Cat number 10 brings a friend and a cousin. He knows that cats come better by the dozen. Now just a few more. Colorful cats. Orange cat stares through the glass, white cat streaks across the grass. Gray cat stretches on the floor, black cat scratches at the door. Brown cat swishes fluffy tail, silver cat sleeps on the mail. Blue-eyed cat strolls up the street, green-eyed cat slurps down a treat. Striped cat scampers up a hill, spotted cat sniffs daffodil. Tabby cat swipes at a string, calico cat suns on a swing. Colorful cats of every hue, which cat is just right for you? A cat a day. Monday's cat is big and strong and purrs beside me all night long. Tuesday's cat was once a stray and follows me around all day. Wednesday's cat has yellow eyes and often leaves me a surprise. Thursday's cat is brown and black and loves to ride upon my back. Friday's cat prefers to zoom from room to room to room to room. Saturday's cat is Siamese and naps for hours on my knees. Sunday's cat plays hide and seek, and that is how I spend my week. Sweet dreams. Late at night when I'm in bed with one cat perched upon my head, and 2 cats lying at my feet, and 3 cats curled beneath the sheet, and 4 cats dozing on the chairs, and 5 cats snoozing on the stairs, and 6 cats snoring on the floor, and 7 cats dreaming by the door, and 8 cats resting in a heap, and 9 cats busy counting sheep, and 10 cats slumbering next to me. There's no place I would rather be. This is the last poem. Who has seen the cat? Who has seen the cat? Neither I nor you. But when the mouse hides in her house, the cat is passing through. Who has seen the cat? Neither you nor I. But when the dog barks till he's hoarse, the cat is passing by. Thank you.
Oh, that was great. That was so great. Leslea and my dog is behind me and he groaned the whole time, but he's not really a very good literary critic. So I just want to let you know that. I would say that that's affirmation of your wonderful cat poem. So, and I couldn't help but notice your cat photo on your bookshelf. You're like a CNN pundit back there with your arrangement there. So yay. So let's introduce Douglas Manuel right now, who's a wonderful poet. And a friend. He's a fellow Red Hen poet. We met years ago at the Red Hen book signing table. So Doug, if you want to come on, and he's a marvelous teacher for our poets. So we will bring him on. Doug?
Yep. I'm here.
There
Thank
you
you guys.
Good.
Yeah, awesome. And thank you for that, Kathleen. I love telling that story of when you and I met. It was amazing to me because I have to admit that I was a little under the weather. Maybe I had tied one on the night before. And so we were sitting there and I didn't know from Sam that it was going to be, this meeting that would change my life and have me working here and being here with all you guys. So really awesome. Thank you, Kathleen.
We're the lucky ones. You're such a fabulous teacher. Thank you. Okay, I'm going off now.
All right, no worries. Yeah, but I love compliments. As I always joke, I'm a Leo, so needy. But first off, I want to start off by thanking Fenton, like Arizona Say What, and I love your work, the vulnerability, and just also the insight into life, just so awesome. And then Rachel, California, we up in here. That essay was so amazing, and honestly, I was telling a friend and just like how much work your father did for poetry and for the movement and for everything. So I'm always just humbled to be around you. And then Leslea, I can't believe your ear. That's why I didn't turn on my camera because I was trying to get that in the chat really quickly. But just your ear for rhythm is just so amazing. And, reminded me of Eliot's cat poems, of County Cullen's cat poems, and then, of course, like all those echoes from Frost. So just so lovely. Thank you for that. And of course, thank you to the whole Spalding crew for making this happen. I don't know how you guys keep on making this magic. I really don't, but it's just so amazing. And going to all the kind of Zoom, go to meetings, hangouts, everything that I've had to go through lately. I always think that Spalding does it just a click higher, just a click better. So I'm so happy to be here, y'all. So I'm going to set a timer because everybody who knows me knows that I'm more than a little bit long-winded. But I'm thinking that I'm going to be able to read maybe 3 to 5 poems. Hopefully we'll get through that, but I'll make sure not to go over my 10-minute mark. The only thing that I want to do before I get started is 2 things. Let you know a little bit about this project. I won't be reading from Testify. I'm still working on my second book, Trouble Funk. A lot of you guys know I'm a very slow and deliberate writer. It's hard to kind of find and remember which poems I've read for you guys and which ones I haven't, because they're all changing, because it's in the drafting process. So sorry if I've read some of these before. I don't think I have. I tried really hard to think of that. But I did realize I wore the same shirt. I wore this shirt last time, so I feel kind of silly about that. But what you need to know about the manuscript is pretty much it's me imagining the space and the time in which my parents got together in the late 70s and early 80s. And in so many ways, that moment speaks to our current moment. If you haven't seen the video of Lee Atwater talking about the Southern strategy, I suggest you just Google it and see if it doesn't sound familiar. And one of the kind of cool things about this project, it is let me know even more about the lies we tell ourselves that have kind of got us to this predicament in the moment that we have. All I have to say is things that started with the 45th did not start with the 45th. So yeah, my parents in the late 70s and early 80s got together. My dad was a DJ. Yeah, all the poems in this manuscript are named after a song that he liked to spin. So yeah, I'll tell you the title of the song and the artist who made it. And finally, before we get into it, the last thing I want to say is I want to dedicate this reading to Black women in America who forever in this country have been the moral conscience of this country and who, dare I say, very well may, have helped us save this country because of them going out to vote. Black women, say what? Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. So let's get into this. I'm pushing start now. Promise I won't be in here longer than 10 minutes, y'all. Promise. All right. So the first one I'm going to read is called Cosmic Slop. That's a Funkadelic song, my dear friends. Here we go. All Damon ever wanted was a gold watch to match the gold chain he found hanging from the gaunt arm of a mulberry tree by the White River. As if it was just left for him, as if it was a gift, as if it was an omen from the Lord, something to tell him that what was in store for him was beyond Anderson, beyond the forest floor where he kept his eyes as he walked the uneven path back to Rabel Avenue. All he wanted to be was not so fat, not so chubby, not having these thick glasses. He didn't want the girls to ignore him. He didn't want them to only talk to them when he needed help with his math. He didn't want the skinny boys to pull down his pants and run away as they laughed. If he ever caught them, he'd bloody them. Be sure to hurt them real bad. An ace pilot, like those brothers from Tuskegee. That's what he wanted to be. Nothing but free sky and the enemy quartered in his mind, his chest full of medals, so every nigga in Anderson would think he was amazing. All he ever wanted to be was a name that never slipped from the tongue, was never forgotten, was repeated again and again, like the best part of the song, the refrain. So the real cool thing about this project for me has been to get to kind of indirectly know my parents through this and imagine what their pasts were. As a lot of you know, my mom died when I was 8, so kind of figuring out who she is always kind of been a project for me. Young Lee, the poet, says everything he writes is looking for his father, and I would say that everything I write is looking for my mother. So I'm especially thinking about how I can center Black women's voices at this moment. And especially thinking of my mama. So the next couple ones are going to be about trying to imagine the space in which she grew up. And thank y'all for the praise. Again, I'm a Leo. I love praise. You can do it all the time if you want. All right. So this next one is called Make Up Your Mind. It's by Ara. Girl, you can't be down on the floor on all fours, Denise mama says to her. Your knees and elbows will get so dark, won't a ne'er man want you when you get grown? Denise doesn't want to get grown. She's heard of Nella and Lisa talking about acting grown and playing lay and stay with Floyd and Marcus. Denise still wants to play tonk and poker and spades with her Aunt Daisy, who knows everything about basketball, gutting fish, and music. Playing lay and stay is not for Denise. Saturday mornings when the grass is still wet from whatever sweats and labors in the night, and the moon is on the opposite side of the sky as the sun, Denise sprints the full 3 blocks to her auntie's house, smoking a Pall Mall Red 100. Aunt Daisy, big as day, sits on the porch with Denise's cards waiting for her. Denise asks her auntie exactly what playing lay and stay is. Daisy replies, come sit here and play these cards. Girl, we always playing cards. Hear me now. We always playing cards. Always a card game. Denise plops down and eyes her cards. What you bidding, baby? Denise answers, I ain't got nothing. I gotta go board with 4. Her brows are furrowed as she looks over her cards. Daisy sucks her teeth, smacks her lips, shakes her head. Tis, kiss, tis. No risk gets you nowhere. Nothing at all. I'm gonna put you down for 5. And girl, you better play like it's for your life. Yeah, I come from a whole family of people who have professionally almost played cards for a living. My auntie and my great aunts used to have big card games, and they invite the whole hood over. And that'd be ways for people to make rent money or help XYZ person get out of the hospital, whatever, you know. So much has happened in a spades game or a tonk game in front of me in my life. So shout out to everybody who then played some tonk and lost their money, or played some spades and lost their money. Shout out. So this next one, and looks like we're at the 5-minute mark. So I think that I'll be able to, maybe I'll read 2 more instead of the 3. Hopefully y'all doing all right. You can unmute yourself and let me know. Y'all doing all right? Y'all doing all right? Oh, I hope so.
Very
Okay,
much.
there we go. Ah, there's somebody, and it's my friend Andrew. What's up, Andrew? I'm glad you're here, homie. All right. Oh, and thank you, Rachel. So yeah, this next song is another Funkadelic song. Funkadelic is and the Parliament are my dad's favorite bands, and whenever he describes them going to see them live, he always tells me, Dougie, is about 165 people on stage. So I always think of that. This one's called Red Hot Mama. Have you been your other self today? And Daisy asks, her eyes looming over the cards. They're playing tonk. I ain't got nothing to match, Denise replies, not answering. Your other self, have you been her today? And Georgie tries again, the question a different way. I'm always me and the other me. Denise throws down a spread. 10 of clubs, jack, queen. Nothing my ass, girl. And Daisy always says between laughs as she puts her cards down to light a cigarette. Their birthdays are the same day, June 11th. Geminis. Minds twine, changeable as the winds of the whim. Their thoughts airy as the smoke, bending itself around Aunt Daisy's face. I know what you mean, she says, as she leans, her head aslant. I'm always both me's too. One on her knees, praying and crying, one cussing her out, telling her, get up, girl, enough is enough. So yeah, with my mom passing so early, it's and many family members have kind of made myths around her. It's really hard to get back to things about her youth. So it's just been really exciting to write poems kind of exploring that. What I often tell people when I've been interviewed about this upcoming book, and oh my goodness, the pressures of the second book is scary, and I'm thinking about them a lot, my dear friends. But what I tell people a lot when I talk about this new book is that I'm not trying to tell the truth, I'm trying to tell a truth. And I think that's an important lesson no matter what discipline you're writing in. I'm trying to tell a truth, not the truth. So now these last couple, this next one kind of looks at my dad again. And so, well, the speaker's father. I changed the names for this manuscript, like I changed some of the names for Testify as well. Again, showing that this is an act of fiction and not an act of memoir. And then also leaving me the creative liberty to step into my imagination a little bit. So every time you hear Damon, know that that's my daddy. So this one's called Flirt. Shout out to Cameo. One of my students I was teaching earlier today is named Candy. So every time I start class, I'm always like, it's like candy, candy. Shout out to Cameo, whoever else knows that song. Hopefully somebody else does and was knocking their head too. But this one's called Flirt. After his stepdaddy lost the store, before he was a DJ controlling the dance floor, after he shot up to 6'4", before he met Denise, his forever lover, his amour, Damon washed cars for a living. It was better than cutting grass, better than trimming edges, better than shearing bushes, better than scouring through trash cans early in the morning for scrap metal, copper, better than selling bootleg liquor, reefer, acid, or coke. Better than riding the bench on some football team. Better than riding the bench on some basketball team. Damon couldn't play no sports. Better than watching his mama tread the currents of her liquid bottles. Better than gambling after school. Fingering the eyes of some dice and knocking a cue ball into the hole. Better than chasing girls around the skating rink just to hear their refusal and the laughter sink into his chest. The way they called him fat, he'll never forget. Yes, washing cars was the best idea. Spotting dirt with simple working circles and scrubbing it until it disappeared. This fast gratification, the way he, fatherless fat boy Damon, could instantly affect the world. The first drug he got high on. His first of many insatiable satisfactions. So this will be the last one. It's Weak at the Knees. Thank you guys so much. It's such a pleasure spending time with y'all. And please, 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 y'all remember the importance of Black women and all the work they've been doing for us all these years, y'all. I've been trying to remind myself of that again and again. So this is called Weak in the Knees by Stephen Arlington. Shout out to the 80s. Denise likes now-laters, Pepsi, not Coke, and breakfast because nobody can frown over her mama's French toast. She likes to rip the backside off of fireflies and stick them to her earlobes as if they were earrings. She feels awful for killing them, but the glowing show she likes. She likes her Kool-Aid blue and her clothes purple. She thinks folks just look good in purple. Especially her with her high yellow skin. She likes chicken, but only the skin. And soap operas, because they never end. She likes wishing life was better. She likes thinking that her grandmother will never grow old, that her grandma will always braid her hair, that she will still be there, just like the knockers that knock as she plays hopscotch in the park. Thank you guys again.
Oh, thanks so much, Doug. That was beautiful. All of them were beautiful, really great. I love hearing the poems about your parents so much. So, and I didn't notice your shirt, but it looks really good on camera. Let me just tell you that. And you, sir, are owed all the praise that you can get. So, okay, so let's bring on next Larry Brenner. Our friend Larry Brenner, who's an alum of the program. We snatched him up and hired him as soon as he graduated, and he's writing for TV, screen, and stage. And Larry's a wonderful playwright and also writes, I think for TV now too, but also screenplays as well. So Larry, you want to come on camera?
Yes, you should all be able to see me and hear me.
We can see you and we can hear you. All right, so good to see you and hear you.
Good to see you too. All right, I'm gonna just jump right into this if that's cool. This is a TV script. It's a TV script that I've adapted from a movie script. There's more interest in. Anyway, I'm not going to tell you anything about it. I'll tell you the title after the teaser, which is where it would appear at that particular point, but we'll just go. Interior, bedroom, night. Emerson Webb, 30s, lies in his bed, his eyes wide open. A sliver of moonlight spills through the window. He glances at the clock, 5:38 a.m. He takes a long inhale of air and then slowly releases it, an audible shh, as he attempts to wind down and relax. Later, his studio. Walk-in kitchen, a fish tank filled with large, ugly, red-tailed catfish. Emerson sits on the floor, cross-legged, meditating. Soothing Enya music plays. In the background, a cup of ramen noodles slowly rotates in the microwave oven. A loud, pounding noise. Emerson winces, does his best to ignore it, takes in a deep breath to recenter himself. The pounding noise recurs, louder than before, more demanding, more insistent. He peeks an eye open and looks towards a locked cabinet. It shakes as something angrily pounds against the door. Ding! The microwave is finished. Emerson turns off the Enya music, then rises. Emerson walks over to the microwave and removes the soup, blows on it to cool it. Pounding. Emerson pours half of the soup into a small bowl, pulls out a key, unlocks the cupboard. In the cupboard, we see a pair of nasty-looking yellowish green eyes glowing in the darkness. He puts the soup into the cabinet. Loud slurping from the thing in the cabinet as Emerson closes the door and locks it. End of teaser. And then we'd see the title card, which says Necromancer. Exterior, East Village, day. A street in Alphabet City, a tattoo parlor next to a supermarket. We focus on one small used bookstore, odds and ends. Interior, bookstore. The place feels like it's covered in dust, precarious towers of books covering over every open surface. Chesler, 50s, sits behind the counter near a bust of Edgar Allan Poe next to a poorly taxidermied raven. Chesler contemplates a Mylar bag containing a mint condition issue of Supervillain Team Up number 3. The issue is marked as mint. He looks it over, struggling to make a decision. Sighs, carefully affixes a sticker over the bag, marking it as near, and then opens the bag. He smiles as he opens the comic book, but his reverie is interrupted when a bell rings. Bobby Lowe, 20, enters, her eyes filled with fire. Fancy clothes, Louis Vuitton bag. Can I help? Where is he? He just stares at her. My father, Claude Lowe. Chesler, he's in the back room, but he storms towards the back room. You can't go. He returns to the comic book. Bobby makes her way to the back room, throws open the door, revealing Emerson's office. A storage room converted into an office of sorts. Unopened brown boxes cluttering the walls, fluorescent lights. Emerson sits at a small table, wearing a pair of black jeans and a solid color shirt. All black Nike sneakers that could pass for dress shoes if you didn't pay them too much attention. On the other side of the table sits Claude, 50s, sad, wet eyes that threaten to burst at any moment. He flinches as Bobby enters. Bobby, what are you doing here, Dad? Claude, Bobby, wasting your time with this fraud? She looks at Emerson. You disgust me. No response from Emerson. Bobby points her hands at him expressively as if to say, see? Claude. Bobby, please. Mr. Webb, I'm sorry. Emerson shakes his head. It's fine. Dad, it's not your job to step up and protect me. People like him, they prey on your grief. He'll say a few nice words about how he can sense Mom's energy and that Mom loves you, and none of it is for real. Mom is gone, okay? There's nothing left. Emerson takes a deep breath, then exhales loudly. Perhaps the two of you should talk about this in private. Bobby. Why? Am I disturbing the spirits? Messing with the room's chakras or whatever? You seem to have me confused with a medium. I don't see dead people floating around us, whispering words of love and guidance. Candidly, I don't know that anyone does. Seems made up. I am a necromancer. What's the difference? I summon the dead back from the other side, wrest them from their place in the afterlife, conjuring them to this mortal plane. And yes, he turns to Claude, I can bring your wife back, conjure her from the beyond. But I warn you, I cannot promise this will alleviate your grief. It may very well heighten it, open up a door to unending misery. That being said, I take MasterCard, Visa, and the Discover card. Cash is acceptable, but I don't take personal checks. Payment is expected in advance. Claude reaches for his wallet. Dad, for God's sake, you can't seriously believe any of this. I mean, really? You don't believe in God. You don't believe in anything. Well, I do. Claude hands Emerson his credit card, who immediately brings it over to a card swiper at his desk. When can we start? Emerson. Now. Bobby. Just like that. Emerson shrugs. It'll save you from having to make a second trip. You want to have a seat? He sits down at the table. Bobby begrudgingly takes a chair. Your wife's name? Frances Lowe. Any middle name? Clary. Bobby. You need her social security number too? All I need is a name. Names have power. Claude, how does it work? Just sit there, and I'm going to summon your wife's spirit. You're not going to lower the lights? This is not a performance. What I do is not easy, and it does not come without effort. It is considerably harder if I cannot see. Once I start, I cannot stop. She will come, and I have no idea how long she will stay. You understand? You say whatever it is you have to say. You ask only those questions that you absolutely need the answers to, and then you dismiss her. Get in, get out. Bobby rolls her eyes. Emerson extends his hands to both Claude and Bobby. Bobby begrudgingly takes his hand. Emerson concentrates. His pupils flicker red for a second. A hazy form begins to materialize on the table. Claude gasps and Bobby goggles, her mouth wide open. A female face forms in the ephemera. Frances. Mom? Frances. It's true. You're okay. Tears start streaming down Bobby's face. Claude, Bobby, oh my darlings, I never thought I'd see you again. Emerson frowns. He gestures to father and daughter to get on with it. Mom, I need you to know, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault. But the things I said, I didn't mean. I forgive you. I knew you didn't mean it. But you know how we were. We were too much alike to get along. Claude, Frances. Frances turns to Claude lovingly. Claude, tell me it isn't true. What do you... I went through your closet, Frances. I saw the letters. Frances blanches. Busted. Dad? Frances, you were never supposed to. Clearly. What are you talking about? Claude, tell her. Tell her what you did. Frances, no, this isn't how it's supposed to. Things have gotten super awkward. Emerson squirms in his seat. Claude, she deserves to hear it from you. I paid good money to have it come from you. Bobby, Mom? Frances, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. What are you sorry about? The fact that you cheated on me? Or that you lied about it for years? Mom, I was so lonely and you got pregnant. And you thought, what? Wait, Dad, what does this mean? It means you're not mine, Bobby. Don't you see? It was all such a mess. Bobby, this can't be true. You're doing this. She glares at Emerson. You're making her. You're making both of them say these terrible things. Emerson, should we just end things now? Frances, no, don't. Don't send me back. You don't know what it's like. Emerson flinches. Bobby, wait, what do you mean? Mom, are you in? I can't go back there. Please don't send me back. Emerson, I'm sorry. Claude, wait a minute, but he doesn't know what to say. Emerson, things on the other side are complicated. Dad, you can't let him send her back. Absolutely not. What do we have to do? Emerson, I can't. Claude, is it money? Because I can? Not, won't, can't. I cannot keep her here. I don't have that power, so she goes back. Just say what you need to say and be done with it. Frances, Claude, I'm sorry. Claude, it's okay. It's okay. It's my fault too. Just, Emerson, say it. And then suddenly Frances is gone. A long, terrible silence. Bobby is softly sobbing. Claude sits stunned. Emerson clears his throat. Tipping is customary. Cut to interior bookstore. Chesler is carefully putting the comic book back into the Mylar bag. Claude and Frances hurriedly leave the back room. Frances's face is streaming with tears. They don't even look at Chesler as they leave the store. Emerson enters from the back room. Chesler, so that looks like that went great. We talked about this. People skills, Emerson. When Madame Leonia was using the back room, she'd have them all in happy tears every time. This is our currency. Emerson, she was a fraud. What I do is real. This is a service industry. You have to give the people what you want. The visual effects, those are great. That is the A material. But maybe we pull back a bit. Maybe we don't have them talk. Emerson, that is the service they are paying for. Chesler, exactly. So we give them what they want, but we use some finesse. You do the talking for the ghosts. You say kind, loving words. He looks at Emerson. Or we get you a partner, a beautiful assistant who's just trying to earn her equity card. And she does the whole, I will never stop loving you shtick. This is all beneath me. Using my abilities for money. That isn't what they're for. No, what they're for is for raising zombie armies and binding souls into service. But I don't know how to monetize that. Emerson, I'm going to go take my lunch. Chesler, no rush coming back. He gestures at the appointment book. Nothing for the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Larry. That was great. I feel like I want to binge on this, but it's not coming fast enough. I have to wait every residency to hear more about Necromancer. So it's really wonderful to hear. So thank you so much. So Lynnell, you want to come on now? Lynnell's our last reader, Lynnell Edwards, who is one of our partners in crime here in the MFA office. And Lynnell's a poet. She's done lots of other writing as well, and she's been so fantastic in really leading the design of the professional writing program too. So her latest book, which has come out during the pandemic, we know how difficult that is to try to promote a book during a time like this, but I think she's been able to do a good job. It's a beautiful book. It's called This Great Green Valley. And I'm not sure she's going to read from that tonight because she has lots of projects going on, but we will hear from her in a second. Hey, Lynnell. So
Hey,
I will give you the floor.
thank you. So we are right at the edge of our time, so I'm going to be super brief and just leave you wanting more. I'm going to start by revisiting an older poem from my third book, Covet. Because today, if you grew up with or have now in your yard a ginkgo tree, you know that they lose their leaves all at once. And today I got home and the ginkgo had lost almost all of its leaves. And if you happen to be around when it happens, it's pretty spectacular. So this is a poem from Covet called Ginkgo biloba after Goethe. And it was part of a sort of fractured alphabet series in Covet. Ginkgo biloba. The lamp of his language guttering, Goethe sends a last song to his Marianne, song of ginkgo biloba, last of his genus, ginkgo, brought from the east to the gardens of the Orangerie at Weimar. He affixes 2 late leaves, gold as galleons flashing, to the letter. The double creases spread like a geisha's fan. It pleases him to see her blush, envelope tip to parted lips, to hide her smile at his double verse. Dass ich eins und doppelt bin. I am one thing and also two. So then a couple poems from This Great Green Valley. This summer with the Spalding Presents series, I read from the second part of this book, which is a long poem about my own childhood on the Kentucky River. But the first part is based on research into Kentucky's pioneer history. So I'm going to read just 3 poems that are investigations of what was perhaps the more real story of Kentucky's founding, which was that there was great greed and a land grab and quite a lot of cheating of native folks. So this first one is called John Swift Warns You of What You Seek. And there it was from the beginning, legends in Kentucky of silver in the hills of eastern Kentucky, of which there is not. John Swift was a very early, maybe settler. This is the stuff of History Channel. But anyway, it propelled quite a lot of excavations of Kentucky looking for silver in the mines. And John Swift is sort of the character responsible for this. John Swift warns you of what you seek. Ugly business this, dead men and their treasure, my legacy writ. Indian trader, pirate, man of faint allegiance to nation God, who I did or didn't kill, blood some way spilled to get map or passage to Cherokee, Shawanah lode, primitive kilns that smelt silver from ore, Boone, Filson, Herod, fevered with legend, disappear into this rough and cliffy country, look for a peculiar rock where 3 creeks come together. Sign of a triangle, sign of a compass, sign of a trowel and square. Haven't I said enough? I am blind at the end, the dim work of mining, its fires and salt. Or a duel robs me of my sight, the other fellow his life. Still I point men panting for wealth, south or east, by the feel of sun on my face. Some don't come back, none get rich. No furnace never found, nor counterfeit sack of English crowns. More? Furnace Creek, Clear Creek, Cane Creek, look for a rock house, look for a hole. It's all in the journals. 50 poles south, look for a notched oak, Buffalo Rock, Sky Rock, Tabletop Rock. Have you no sense, no eyes to see? You'll get nothing more from me. And then 2 poems about land, which is something I'm very interested in. And both of these are kind of hard poems, really. The first one is called Dragging Canoe, Curses Colonel Henderson at the Treaty of the Sycamores, March 17th, 1775. And the Treaty of the Sycamores, if you don't know Kentucky history, and why would you, was quite an agreement to get quite a lot of land that was bought from the Cherokees, kind of, by Colonel Henderson, who went on to founded the Transylvania Company, which is where Boonesboro was settled. So this is Dragging Canoe, Curses Colonel Henderson at the Treaty of the Sycamores, March 17th, 1775. And you, Henderson, you want now to further purchase tracts for a path to these Cherokee lands, fair country brokered for no fair terms by my ancient father and rum-soaked raven and the rest of these sorry braves. You, Henderson, you claim ritual respect, desire not to walk over the land of my brothers, while already you have all game between Watauga and Sycamore gone, all the buffalo, the turkey, the deer and grouse, the pheasant, a cloud of starvation bloating the horizon. While I live, Henderson, you and your Transylvania will find no such safe passage. Your boots will fill with blood, and the ground will turn black with blood, and your women, your children, will know blood as their drink, blood as their bread, will taste metal and fear in their mouths, choking on what thin roots and vines you will scratch from this land dark stained with blood. This next one is a villanelle, which is a form I like, but is rare coming in a poem. It's called The Speculators. And land speculation in Kentucky was a thing. And in fact, all the wealthy persons in the East grabbed up all the land through speculation and purchasing and schemes before really very many ordinary folks could settle there. And this was prompted by two lines I read in letters when I was doing research in the archives at the Filson Historical Society here in Louisville. And in one letter, unidentified from Harrodsburg, 1780, the agent writes, "I will have more rich land or I will cease to be." And then Isaac Height writes to his father, April 26, 1783, "I have in contemplation a scheme." The Speculators. "We will have more rich land, or we will cease to be rightful lords of this pleasant land. Thus have we in contemplation a scheme for acquiring preemptions from those who cease to be, or those without improvements on their land, and so will be vulnerable to our scheme. Or in treating with what savage who may be reluctant to release his hunting lands, convince him sweetly to the fairness of our scheme. Or the disenfranchised who may wish to be themselves made liberated by our land, but will instead be indentured by our scheme. And if our creditors refuse to be expansive in their backing of our land, we will overrun their ledgers with our scheme. And for as long as our governors let us be, we will rule as masters of this land. Territories gotten, stolen by our scheme, a vast country ours will always be." And I think that explains gerrymandering. I'll read one more poem from here. And this is a slightly sweeter poem. "As the boy grows, so grows the tale." And this was one of many, many stories I wrote of pioneer days about a little boy who had basically wandered away from the fort and been lost for a long time. As the boy grows, so grows the tale. How he had heard the gunshots on a warm afternoon while he and his friends foraged for chestnuts far from the station. How, fearing attack, they scattered like minnows. How he didn't stop running until he was nigh lost, and with dark creeping in, called and called, but never heard his fellows' hurrah nor his father's high whistle. How he crawled into a hollow log, moss pulled up for a blanket, and how he slept that night and the next night, and then 10 nights, wandering from rock house to root, to smooth bank of a creek bed, nose to chest like a fox or a bobcat, gathering herbs and leaves, tiny bitter berries, what sustenance might carry him one day more. How he caught a glittering fish with his bare hands, but twisting so it cut him and he threw it back. And how he was never, ever afraid, he will say to his grandsons, wide-eyed on the rug, mug of milk in their hands, never afraid, not even when he saw 2 bright eyes shining from a tangle of laurel. Was it a bear? He will ask them, drawing closer, or an Indian, and the boys will cry out when he laughs, their hearts beating like birds, startled at the wild thing he had once become. Thank you.
So beautiful. Oh, so beautiful. I love those poems. So you all, if you'd like to purchase Lynnell's book, her beautiful book, or the books of other folks who have been reading tonight, then if you scroll back up in the chat, the bookshop.org, link is there. So that would be great. And then we'll look forward to the time when we can be together and can actually sign those books. So, okay, can everybody come on camera again, and we'll do a great big thank you. So come on camera and unmute yourselves, and we'll have a big round of applause for this marvelous, marvelous reading of such talented writers that we're so happy to be affiliated with. So thank you all. Thank everyone for being here. It's wonderful to be with you and wonderful to see folks we haven't seen for a while. And I hope you guys will pop in. You're more than welcome. For those of you who aren't attending the residency or whatever, you're more than welcome to pop into the other readings that we're having throughout. And we have really wonderful things for you. And so I will stay on for a little bit if anyone has questions for me about residency. And otherwise, one more round of applause, and we'll say goodnight.
Bye.